So is it really okay for believers to celebrate Halloween? Or just change the name but keep the practices? This is Off the Cuff, and I'm Steve from TorahFamily.org. Let's talk about it. I want to start off by letting you know this teaching, like all of our others, will not be sharing any evil images regarding the topic at hand. We don't need them to prove any points. We see them everywhere, and I do mean everywhere. Just last year, we saw a church literally set up a 15-foot figured balloon of the Grim Reaper in front of its doors for Halloween, a figure that literally represents death. It's interesting how these churches will ridicule how ancient Israel brought idol worship into the temple of Yahweh, but have no problem with bringing the practices of Halloween into their places of worship. Could these be tables Yeshua would be flipping if he was physically walking among us today? I know this can be a sensitive topic for many. It involves traditions that so many have grown up with. So this may be on the challenging side for some. I don't want this to come across as condemning for those who observe Halloween. However, I do want to offer the reasons why my family and I have concerns for this day and why we choose not to participate in those traditions anymore. Some things I say here or verses I read may come across as harsh. Please know that's not my intention. This is coming from a heart of concern and hope you'll consider what's being said. The more I studied to give detailed resources on what I knew, the more I just didn't want to share darkness. So let me give you some basics on this day, and we'll move on to the scriptures from there. Many believe Halloween started with All Saints' Day or All Hallows' Eve, but these are believed to have derived from Catholic practices. However, these practices actually come from pagan religions. The history of Halloween actually started as a Celtic holiday. It was called Samhain, though it's spelled as Samhain. All Saints' Day or All Hallows didn't come till much later in history. The Encyclopedia Britannica says Samhain is from the ancient Celtic religion and is one of the most important and sinister festivals of the year. It's held on November 1st. This is when the world of the gods is believed to be seen by the living. It's when the gods and the spirits play tricks on their mortal worshippers. It was a day filled with danger and fear. Sacrifices of every kind were believed to be vital, for without them, the Celts believed they didn't stand a chance against the perils of the season or to counteract the activities of these deities. Samhain is believed to be the foundation and forerunner of Halloween. Quoting from the Encyclopedia Britannica, Halloween, contraction of All Hallows' Eve, a holiday observed on October 31st, the evening before All Saints' or All Hallows' Day. The celebration marks the day before the Western Christian feast of All Saints and initiates the season of All Hallowtide, which lasts 3 days and includes All Souls' Day. In much of Europe and most of North America, observance of Halloween is largely non-religious. Halloween had its origins in the festival of Samhain among the Celts of ancient Britain and Ireland. So, here we see All Saints' Day is November 1st. It starts a time known as All Hallowtide, which lasts through November 3rd. Quoting again from the Encyclopedia Britannica, in ancient Britain and Ireland, the Celtic festival of Samhain Eve is observed on October 31st, at the end of summer. It was the occasion for one of the ancient fire festivals when huge bonfires were set on hilltops to frighten away evil spirits. The souls of the dead were thought to revisit their homes on this day, and the autumnal festival acquired sinister significance with ghosts, witches, hobgoblins, black cats, fairies, and demons of all kinds said to be roaming about. In addition, Halloween was thought to be the most favorable time for divinations concerning marriage, luck, health, and death. Quite honestly, I just don't see a need to dig into this day anymore. I believe there's enough here to at least put this day into question for all believers. The very origins of Halloween has nothing but evil foundations. You can make it look as innocent as you want, but the practices are the same, whether you dress up as a demon or as an innocent cartoon character. If you disagree with me on this, I understand, because it's hard to hear something that goes against what you enjoy. But please, don't stop watching just yet. We all do many things out of tradition, basically saying, we've always done this. It's not that we're out to do something in rebellion. It's just tradition. It's fun. I get it. I've been there. We may think it's harmless, but is it? Now, before you answer that, please remember we need to ask this question from the perspective of the Scriptures and not our opinions. So anytime we look into a topic, we need to do our best to keep our emotions out of it and base that decision from the Scriptures only. That can be difficult. I understand how we can feel it's harmless fun. There can be many elements to it that in and of themselves are completely innocent. Several years ago, my children were invited to go to a farm that had a corn maze. Well, that corn maze ended up being much more than just that. The very nature of Halloween promotes fear and darkness, the exact opposite of Yahweh. It's one of the high holy days for Satanists and witches. While the world is out participating in what appears to be innocent fun, but actually represent occultic rituals, the Satanists and witches are doing theirs behind closed doors. From what I've studied, Halloween has its roots in religious traditions which are not from Yahweh. Not even close. Knowing that many of the traditions tied to it come from evil, pagan origins, is that what we want to partake in? It's really a day of celebrating darkness. But we know there is no darkness in Yahweh. So why choose traditions founded in dark rituals? I want to ask a difficult question here. How would believers who are participating in Halloween events appear to Yahweh? One more time. How would believers who are participating in Halloween events appear to Yahweh? Would they appear more as spotless or lukewarm in His sight? Anytime I hear the term lukewarm, I can't help but think of the verses in Revelation that addresses the church of Laodicea as lukewarm. No one wants to consider themselves lukewarm. However, it's not what we think that matters. It's what He knows about us that matters. Remember, according to Matthew chapter 7, verses 21 through 23, there will be many people who thought they were in good standing with Yeshua, but find out too late they aren't. These people may have indeed done many things for Yahweh, but anyone who twists the ways of the enemy into their life will be considered of the enemy and not His. This is what it means to be lukewarm as given regarding the church of Laodicea. Being lukewarm means you have mixed hot and cold together. Do we consider ourselves as people who fear Yahweh? If so, then should those who fear Yahweh participate in celebrations that oppose Him? I mean, literally oppose Him. Since He is light, should we want anything to do with celebrations of darkness? I believe something we all need to learn and understand is what Yahweh sees as wicked. Think of a candle. What does it have? It has a wick. What is a wick? It's fabric that is twisted together. Thus, something that is twisted together is considered a form of being a wick, or wicked. So wicked can be understood as two things being twisted together. It's as we see being lukewarm. It's hot and cold, mixed or twisted together. Thus, Yahweh's command for us to be holy, which means to be set apart, not twisted together, not lukewarm. Set apart. Thus, Paul's words to the Corinthians. 2 Corinthians chapter 6, starting in verse 14. Do not be yoked together with unbelievers. For what do righteousness and wickedness have in common? Or what fellowship can light have with darkness? What harmony is there between Christ and Belial? What does a believer have in common with an unbeliever? What agreement is there between the temple of God and idols? For we are the temple of the living God. As God has said, I will live with them and walk among them, and I will be their God, and they will be my people. Therefore come out from them and be separate, says the Lord. Touch no unclean thing, and I will receive you. I will be a father to you, and you will be my sons and daughters, says the Lord Almighty. Since we have these promises, dear friends, let us purify ourselves from everything that contaminates body and spirit, perfecting holiness out of reverence for God. Let us purify ourselves from everything that contaminates body and spirit. And then it says, perfecting holiness. That's being set apart out of reverence for God. Perfecting holiness. It's a process. It's all about growth, growing in His holiness. It's something we learn as we grow in our relationship with Him. Think of the word compromise. It's the act of taking two opposing views or ways and blending them together, twisting them together, twisting two opposing views into one, thus making something that was set apart to become wicked by twisting it with another. Yahweh has one way for us to go. The enemy wants us to go any way that is not in the direction of Yahweh. When one compromises with the enemy, all it does is get you off the path Yahweh has for you. The enemy could care less which way you go as long as it's not the path of Yahweh. Let's read a few other verses. As we do, please keep the day of Halloween in mind. Psalm 97, verse 10. Let those who love Yahweh hate evil, for He guards the lives of His faithful ones and delivers them from the hand of the wicked. Jude 22. Be merciful to those who doubt. Snatch others from the fire and save them. To others show mercy, mixed with fear, hating even the clothing stained by corrupted flesh. Ephesians chapter 5, starting in verse 8. For you were once darkness, but now you are light in the Lord. Live as children of light. For the fruit of the light consists in all goodness, righteousness, and truth, and find out what pleases the Lord. Have nothing to do with the fruitless deeds of darkness, but rather expose them. For it is shameful even to mention what the disobedient do in secret. But everything exposed by the light becomes visible, for it is light that makes everything visible. This is why it is said, Wake up, O sleeper, rise from the dead, and Christ will shine on you. Be very careful then how you live, not as unwise, but as wise, making the most of every opportunity, because the days are evil. We're to be careful in how we live our lives. Paul is getting this from Deuteronomy chapter 5 and many other places as well. Now, pause for a moment and ask yourself if you're trying to be careful in how you live your life. Are you careful, or are you quick to make decisions based on tradition because it's, well, what you've always done and really haven't put much thought to it? I'm reminded of the scene in the movie Raiders of the Lost Ark. It's where the main character had to walk through a hallway to get to the treasure. However, he couldn't step on the stones of the walkway. He could only walk on the mortar between the stones. He had to be very careful how he walked. He had to be careful. The only places he could step was very narrow. Does this scene represent how you try to live your spiritual walk? The scene in that movie gives us a perfect illustration of life. It illustrates how we have to live our lives every day. Yeshua said in Matthew 7:13, "Enter through the narrow gate, for wide is the gate, and broad is the road that leads to destruction, and many enter through it. But small is the gate, and narrow the road that leads to life, and only a few find it." Are you striving for the narrow path? Or are you casually walking through life, not realizing all the poisonous darts you're getting hit with on the wide path? Now, I know some would say, well, I'm not dead from it all yet. But it's the deception those darts bring that lead to death. Narrow is the road that leads to life, and only a few find it. Only a few. I know there are many who substitute Halloween with Harvest Fest or Fall Fest or some other name. But you're just changing the name. It's really no different. You're just celebrating the same practices under a different title. The enemy doesn't care what you call it. He just cares you participate in the evil practices. It's just another example of mixing or twisting. It's the church bringing the world into the church instead of living out his example to the world. For those who want to celebrate the fall season, do it the way Yahweh gave us. Celebrate the Feast of Tabernacles. It's called Sukkot in the Hebrew. It's a time of rejoicing and celebration in the fall, and it lasts for 7 days. Walk your life according to the Scriptures and keep the evil practices of the world out of it. When you do, you're making yourself set apart in the eyes of Yahweh. You're making yourself holy. Since our goal is to walk our life according to the Scriptures and keep the ways of the world out of it, let's read some other verses together. As we do, keep the practices of Halloween in mind. 1 Peter chapter 1, starting in verse 13. Therefore, prepare your minds for action. Be self-controlled. Set your hope fully on the grace to be given you when Jesus is revealed. As obedient children, do not conform to the evil desires you had when you lived in ignorance. But just as he who called you is holy, so be holy in all you do. For it is written, be holy, because I am holy. 1 Corinthians chapter 10, starting in verse 21. You cannot drink the cup of the Lord and the cup of demons too. You cannot have a part in both the Lord's table and the table of demons. Romans chapter 12, verse 1. Therefore, I urge you, brothers, in view of God's mercy, to offer your bodies as living sacrifices, holy and pleasing to God. This is your spiritual act of worship. Do not conform any longer to the pattern of this world, but be transformed by the renewing of your mind. Then you will be able to test and approve what God's will is, his good, pleasing, and perfect will. Ephesians chapter 6, verse 11. Put on the full armor of God, so that you can take your stand against the devil's schemes. For our struggle is not against flesh and blood, but against the rulers, against the authorities, against the powers of this dark world, and against the spiritual forces of evil in the heavenly realms. I understand how it can appear as harmless. I do. I mean, even Charlie Brown celebrates it. But dressing up as anything on Halloween is participating in it. There is so much that can make it seem innocent and harmless. Yet, when knowing what the traditions of Halloween represent and where they came from, do we really want to participate in them? We wouldn't be celebrating if these creatures actually came out on this day. We'd be locking our doors and praying for dear life. We're supposed to be a holy people. That means to be set apart. But how can we be set apart if we're celebrating a day that represents darkness? I mean, the very essence of this day is evil and darkness. 1 Thessalonians chapter 5, verse 22. Avoid every kind of evil. This verse alone screams we should be avoiding Halloween. But let's continue. Verse 23. May God himself, the God of peace, sanctify you through and through. The Greek word for sanctify here is literally the act of setting something apart. Continuing. May your whole spirit, soul, and body be kept blameless at the coming of our Lord Jesus Christ. The one who calls you is faithful, and he will do it. We don't judge anyone who chooses to participate in the traditions of the world we live in. We were there ourselves at one time. We simply want to do our best to help everyone see the mindset of how we're all to be aliens and strangers in this world. As 1 Peter 2:11 says here, these things war against our soul, and we don't even realize it. Now I get it. You might be thinking, Steve, I believe you're going a little overboard with this. And maybe you're right. However, what if you're wrong? When all is said and done, I would much rather hear Yeshua say to me, dude, you could have lightened up a little on some of your beliefs. Now I get it. He wouldn't say dude, but you know what I'm saying. I would much rather hear that and know I missed out on temporary fun in this life instead of the alternative. That being how I should have avoided these things on this temporary side of eternity and be told, I never knew you. Away from me, you evildoers. We need to be careful. Are we being careful? Now, consider this. Though I believe certain things will transpire before Yeshua's return, precursors that lead up to that moment, what if, just what if, Yeshua came for his people on Halloween? Now, some are saying, oh, Steve, he's not going to come on Halloween. Okay, I get it. I'm not here to debate that point. I'm just asking, what if? Oh, Steve, everyone knows he's going to come on a feast day from the Bible, blah, blah, blah. Again, that's not my debate here. I'm not trying to make that point. I'm just asking, what if? What if Yeshua came for his people on the day of Halloween? If he did, who would he gather to take with him? Would he gather those who are participating in practices that remember occultic pagan rituals? Or would he gather those who are avoiding them? Or what if Halloween is the last test Yahweh allows his people to see where they stand right before the days of Revelation all begins? Basically the choose you this day whom you will serve type of thing. And then after they choose, not long after that, it could all begin. Would Halloween be an event the Church of Laodicea would participate in? You know, the church no one claims to be a part of? With that in mind, do you really see Yeshua participating in such an event? Do you really see him dressing up like a demon? Do you see him even dressing up as something innocent, knowing the very fact that act in itself is replicating pagan practices of dressing up as demons? Knowing Yeshua wouldn't take part in such an evil pagan practice, why should we? Lastly, please know, I realize this can be a difficult teaching for some to hear. I do. And I realize it can be difficult for children if they're suddenly told they're not allowed to participate in something they've been looking forward to for a long time. I get it. But at the same time, there's no better time than the present to teach them truth. There are many other ways to let them know they're special to you than allowing them to participate in something you now see as something we should avoid. The next issue would be, how do I keep children from coming to our door on Halloween? Well, for us, every year we put several signs on our house saying, this house doesn't celebrate Halloween. and we keep the porch light off as well. It helps, and people respect it. Hopefully it will help for you too. Well, that's all I have. Please think about it. Pray about it. But more than anything, be a doer of the word and not a hearer only. Until next time, Shalom.